I read about this great inventor once called Buckminster Fuller. He was known as Bucky to his friends. He was a wonderful guy, probably one of the greatest inventors of his generation, perhaps of that whole species. The interesting thing about him is that he didn't really do anything with his life until after the age of 40. Apparently his child had died. I think he had a daughter, and I think she died from polio. And the story is that he felt personally responsible for her death, even though it wasn't his fault. Anyway, he created a breakdown. He had a nervous breakdown at the age of 40, and he became so acutely aware of the power of speech and the power of words that he decided not to talk to anybody for a year. He decided not to talk to anybody until he understood what it was he was talking about, because he knew how what you thought and what you said and what you did could not just affect people but affect the world around you. So at the age of 40, after this particularly bad breakdown, he decided to evaluate his life, and he wrote a book about this called The Critical Path, and in it he did a chapter called The Guinea Pig Self, I think it was called, or Guinea Pig A, and he basically was the guinea pig in his own life. He decided to experiment with success in the world, see what worked. The first thing he did was he did a personal inventory of his own life. He looked back on his own life and went back to all the different places where he'd been successful. He realised at the age of 40 that he'd lived largely an unsuccessful life. He'd achieved nothing of any particular worth. There was no legacy there for him, and he found that very disappointing. At the few points in his life where he had been successful, there were only a few points, but all of those points where he was very successful was when he did things for people selflessly. You know, just like as an aside, somebody would ask him to do something. He did it because he liked them, he thought it was worthwhile, and did it from a place of love. So he would describe this probably as a happy accident. So the successes he'd had were happy accidents, but all the things where he tried to make money, where he tried to be successful, where he tried to contrive success, hadn't worked for him. So we concluded that to be successful he needed to do things selflessly, because that's what his reference points had told him, and he decided moving forward that that's what he was going to do. He was going to practice that. He was going to try and do just the things that served other people. Not just the things that served other people, but things that served millions of other people. He said, I'm not interested in doing anything unless it serves millions of people. I want big ideas. I want to create big things. And he also decided that he wasn't going to charge any money for anything he did. It was a very bold thing to do, because he still had to live. But he said, I don't want to charge any money. I'm not going to charge nothing. He said, if I invent things that serve millions of people and the patents sell, that's fine. But I'm just going to do things for the love of it. I'm just going to find that frequency of love. And in the Bible it actually says this: find the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all good things will come to you. The God is known universally as love, and the kingdom would be the frequency. So find the frequency of love. Find something you love doing. And righteousness means, in Old Greek, it means right path, or moral or ethical path. So if we do something we love and we keep the moral path, everything we want will come, including the divine energy of money, if that's what we need as well. So that's what he trusted. That's what he decided to do, and he trusted that was the right thing to do. So going forward, he said, I'm just going to do things that serve millions of people. And I really like that idea, because most of us, most of the time, sit down and think to ourselves, I just need to make some money, I just need to make the mortgage, I just need to make my wife or husband happy, I just need to buy that new car. And we tend to think very small. We tend to think just of our own needs. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but it keeps our thinking small. Because while you're just trying to raise, you know, £1,000 a month for your mortgage, that's pretty much exactly what you're going to raise. Well, that's what you're aiming for. Or if you're just aiming to write a play on a local theatre, you know, like a local amateur dramatics, probably that's what you'll create. And the reason this resonated with me with this great man, with Buckminster Fuller, was because it I found the same with my own life. When I was most successful, and when I have been most successful, it's always been when I've had happy accidents. It's always been when I've done things for the love of it, when the ideas come and I just thought, I'm just going to do that because it's a great idea. When I wrote Bouncer, my first short film, I really just did it as a favour for a friend of mine called Natasha Carlish and Michael Bay Clifford. I'd met them, they were interested in doing a documentary about me at the time, and I just thought, these are two really nice people, and they asked me to write a short film, and I just said, yeah, I'll do it, because I felt it. I felt that frequency of love from them, from the project. So I decided to write it. There was no money involved, I just wrote it. And that was obviously BAFTA nominated, and it went into over 32 international festivals, went all around the world. The success of this short film was unprecedented, but it came from that place of love. It came from that place of, I think St. Paul calls it serving from the spirit, not serving from the flesh. In other words, taking the information from the collective unconscious, from the Akashic, not taking it from our own intellectual knowing, not sitting there thinking I'm going to write a great idea. Similarly, when I was on the set of Bouncer, talking to one of the actors, Ronnie Fox, about his problems with addiction, I just remember the same feeling, and I said to him, I could write you a wonderful film based on the stories you're telling me. I could do you a great film. And I did. I wrote a film called Brown Paper Bag, no money, exactly the same feeling, the feeling of love and the feeling of selflessness, doing it just as a favour because it felt right. And that film went on to win the BAFTA, and it got me the money to make a feature film, and again it travelled around the world. It introduced us to lots of people. It got me an agent. A million good things came from that one film, and actually we couldn't even raise the money to make that film. We got shortlisted by Cinema Extreme for £60,000. But we didn't win the money. They didn't think at the time that the director was ready. Of course he was ready, but they couldn't see it. So we made the film ourselves. We financed it ourselves. In fact, Natasha Carlish remortgaged a house for £3,500. She took a loan off a house to make it herself. I think me and the other producer paid for the food and the accommodation. Between us, we made the film with £3,500, and it was a world beater. Excuse me, it went everywhere around the world. So, similarly with the film Romans, similarly, same place, came from a feeling of love. I love these two young directors, the Paul and Ludwig Shamagian. I loved working with them, so I just said, I'll do this film. They wanted me to do it, I said, I'll do it. And it went on and won awards all over the world. There was a divinity in it. And then, interestingly, looking back to my very first book, Watch My Back, I remember being depressed and being afraid and being fearful of life. I remember thinking, I'm going to read up, I'm going to find something, I'm going to get some information about this fear and see if I can overcome it. And I remember reading lots of books and always being disappointed that the authors weren't being honest. They weren't forthcoming with the information about fear. In fact, most of them were kind of outright lied about it. There was no one in there saying, actually I'm scared and it's okay to be scared. And I remember then thinking, when I find out what the answer to fear is, I'm going to write about it and I'm going to tell everybody. So my feeling for writing that first book was that I wanted to share it with people. I wanted to serve people with it. That was just the feeling I had, and that's why the book has gone on to go around the world. It's sold over 100,000 copies. It's been a feature film, it's been a short film, it's been a stage play, it's been a series of lots of articles. I did a feature in the Times about it. It came from exactly that same place, and that's what Buckminster Fuller discovered by doing this personal inventory, which is one of the things I was going to kind of invite you to do. Try a personal inventory, write down all the places, where you was most happy, where you was most successful, and see whether it correlates with what we're talking about here. And serve from the spirit, not from the flesh. Not to serve this small c, the small consciousness, or the small e, the small ego, but to serve God, to serve omniscience, literally serve millions of people. And the idea behind that is, this is Buckminster Fuller's theory, was that When we start thinking about serving more people, of course we get bigger ideas. Because if I just want to fish, if I just want to feed myself, I just need a line and a hook and a rod, and I can sit by the riverbank and feed myself. You don't need lots of big ideas for that. But if I want to suddenly serve 1,000 people, I've got to think about maybe getting a boat, maybe going into deeper water, you know, maybe using nets, you know. And if I want to find fish for 1 million people, suddenly I need a fleet of boats, I need an infrastructure, I need a business, I need communication, you know, I need to be connected to the world. Everything changes when you start thinking about serving more people. When things get bigger, things get different. So the exciting thing for me on that is that when we start thinking about serving other people, we start getting big ideas. Our conscious net expands, and we are able to intuit bigger, better ideas. And then we have to, of course, we have to use our will and put that infrastructure into place in the world. So the idea of, this is something the film director David Lynch talks about all the time. He did a book called Catching Big Fish, and he said when he meditates he does it purely to expand his conscious net. He says because lots of the ideas that are out there, he said they're all out there, all the ideas are there, they're all floating around. He said but sometimes they're just outside of our conscious circle. So to see them or to intuit them, we need to expand the conscious net. And if we expand the conscious net, suddenly that idea will just fall into our frequency. And it's literally, you know, literally sometimes just falls into your frequency. I'll tell you this story about counting backwards, this film we've just made. I was meditating, I was sat very still, very quiet, all the internal dialogue had quietened down, and as I was meditating in this deep place, this idea for the film floated into my consciousness like a coin falling through water. It was clear, and I remember almost just observing it and thinking what a great idea. But I thought I'm probably not going to do it. I probably won't write this short film because I'm not in a position to do that at the moment. I'm working on some features. And the story that floated into my consciousness was based on a girl called Michelle that I knew really well. She was raped when she was 14. She was raped at knife point, and she survived the ordeal, but she was so determined and so brave. She said, I'm not going to let this guy win. I'm going to get back out into the world, and I'm determined not to let it affect my life in a negative way. 2 weeks later, Michelle goes out with her friends again and says, I'm going to live, I'm not going to let him beat me. She sits in McDonald's having a coffee. She looks across, and there he is. There's this guy sat there with his family, with his wife and children, the rapist. So she tells the manager, he closes the shop, locks the doors and calls the police. So Michelle catches her own rapist. So this is my idea for a short film, but I wasn't going to do it. I just thought, you know, I'm not in the position at the moment to do that, I'm working on some other things. 2 weeks later, my friend Sean rang me up and said I need to do a short film. I want to do a good quality world-class short film. He said I've got this idea about this young girl that was raped in Afghanistan by some soldiers. It's really powerful. And I said well it's interesting, I said, because I don't really want to write a film about Afghanistan, but I am very interested in doing this film about my friend Michelle. And he said, well, can I read the story? I said, well, I haven't got the film written, I've not written it yet. I said, it's just an idea. I said, I don't even know whether Michelle will let me use it. So anyway, I rang Michelle up. I said, I've got this idea about making your story into a film. Would I be able to do that? Is that possible? And she said, yeah, of course. She wanted to share the story because she thought it would serve people. So I said, let's meet. I went and met her. Interestingly, I said, I'll meet you in a cafe between your house and my house. And suddenly we find ourselves in McDonald's in the exact place where she'd caught the rapist, which was very, very strange, very serendipitous. And I'd also said to Michelle, anything you've got from this, you know, anything you can remember from this attack in the 80s, you know, any kind of clippings or anything you can remember, just write it down and bring it with you. So when she arrived, she brought this manila envelope, and in this manila envelope were all the press cuttings, the medical cards, because she had to have AIDS tests, all the sympathy cards, a little purse, lots of little things from her childhood that were involved in this rape. Apparently her mum had kept everything, and as she laid them out on the table, all these press cuttings and all these different things, as she laid them out on the table, I saw my film unfold. I wrote the film around that. The film was gifted to me. I didn't write it, I delivered it, but it was gifted to me. I was doing one of my walks. I do these kind of motivational walks around Coombe Abbey, and one of the guys on the walk, well, there was two guys on the walk, John and Eddie, who paid to come on the walk, and they were very successful businessmen, and they were really interested in working with me in film. So I told them about this story, and I said, we need some producers, but we need some money as well. We needed about £35,000 to make this short film. I said, are you interested? Within a week, they'd created an account, Counting Backwards Productions, and put £35,000 in the account for the film to be made. That's the power of Selfless Service. Again, this film has been made, it's beautiful, we're still cutting it at the moment, but you know, the director, the producer, the writers, none of us have been paid for this. I'm sure at some point, you know, we'll make something else and money will come from that, but the point I'm making is it just came from an intuition. It came from the feeling of wanting to serve this girl, this story, this idea, and it was gifted to me. And that was me working from spirit, but not working from the flesh, not working with my own needs, but thinking about the bigger picture. That's the kind of thing that happens to me all the time. And interestingly, on this film, it's attracted a world-class musician to put the music on. It's attracted world-class actors. It's attracted world-class choreographers. It's attracted a world-class cameraman. It's attracted a world-class editor, someone that's editing in New York for us. It's as though the universe has conspired to give us a world-class crew on a film that's, I think we ended up spending about £70,000 to make it. That's the power of selflessness, that's the power of thinking big. So that's what the idea is with the Buckminster Fuller thing. The idea is that if you can think about serving millions of people, you will get bigger ideas, you'll get better ideas, you will expand exponentially. If you just keep thinking about yourself, you'll just keep thinking as you're thinking, you keep thinking small. So this isn't just an exciting concept. Obviously it is an exciting concept. This isn't just that. What this is a technique. And what I'm advising you to do is when you go out and you meet people and you go to networking and all that kind of thing, rather than stand there and think, what's in this for me? How can I make some money from this? How can I get a deal from this? Instead, think to yourself, how can I serve this person? What am I meeting this person for today? What can I do to bring benefit to this person's life? Even in my prayers, in my meditation, I'll say to God, I say, I know that I'm thinking too small, so please allow me to see and serve you. So when I meet people, I just say, let me see what I can do please show me what I can do to serve this person today. It's what Charles Handy would call proper selfishness. It seems selfless, but it's actually selfish in a good way, because it serves other people, it serves me. When we serve other people, we automatically serve ourselves. This is the highest level of Buddhism, to serve. The Dalai Lama said, but don't worry, because everything you give out will keep returning to you. So we're doing it from a frequency of love. We're doing it from this place of love. So next time you're out, have a good think. Before you do that, have a personal inventory. Find out what's worked for you, when you've been most happy, when you've been most successful, and then start to try and replicate that every single day. So instead of repeating the old things that have never worked, just do the things that work, and try and find more people to serve. If you want to make more money, want a bigger business, want a better life, just keep finding people to serve.